Hello. This week we're focusing on building emotional awareness, not as a concept, not as a personality trait, and not as something you're supposed to already be good at. We're talking about emotional awareness as a trainable nervous system skill. Last week we stayed intentionally conceptual. We talked about what emotions are, why they matter, and how emotional self-care is different from coping, suppression, or trying to think your way out of discomfort. That mattered because without a clear map, most people skip straight to fixing. Most people hear the word emotional and immediately think, what should I do about this? How do I get rid of it? How do I make it stop? Week one was about slowing that impulse down. This week is different. This is where emotional self-care becomes experiential, but still not action-based. We aren't regulating yet. We're not reframing. We're not managing overwhelm. Those skills come later, and they come later on purpose. This week is about contact. Specifically, learning how to notice emotional signals while they're happening, without urgency and without reaction. From a neuroscience standpoint, this week is all about timing. From a recovery standpoint, it's about interrupting automatic patterns without force. From a chronic illness standpoint, it's about reducing internal stress by staying present instead of bracing or escaping. Nothing needs to change this week. Nothing needs to be solved. Nothing needs to improve. Awareness itself is the skill we're building. And that may sound simple, but neurologically, it's one of the most powerful shifts that you can make. This section is the backbone of the entire course. So we're going to slow it down and really unpack it. Emotional reactions do not begin in thought. They begin in the body, in the nervous system, before there's language, before interpretation, and often before conscious awareness. The heart rate changes, muscle tone shifts, breathing patterns adjust. Energy either mobilizes or drops. All of that happens automatically. This is important to say clearly. Emotional activation is not a choice. From a neuroscience standpoint, it starts below conscious control. That is not a flaw. That's how humans survive. The nervous system evolved to respond quickly to changes in the internal and external environment, long before the thinking brain weighs in. The problem is not emotional activation. The problem is when awareness arrives too late. When emotional signals rise and awareness is not present, the brain defaults to whatever pathways have been reinforced most often. These are habit circuits. Under load, the brain prioritizes speed and efficiency, not nuance. That's when people say, I didn't realize what I was feeling until afterward. It just happened. By the time I noticed, it was already too much. Those statements describe a timing issue, not a lack of insight, intelligence, or effort. When awareness arrives late, higher level monitoring systems in the brain have already disengaged. The nervous system has shifted into fast response mode. Options narrow. Urgency increases. Familiar relief-seeking patterns feel compelling. not because they're good ideas, but because they're known. This is why emotional reactions often feel inevitable. And this matters deeply in recovery. When processed food is no longer available as a rapid regulator, emotional signals still occur, but the old relief pathway is gone. If awareness comes late, the system experiences distress without resolution. That experience often gets misinterpreted as, I can't handle my emotions. I'm getting worse. Something's wrong with me. What's actually happening is that the nervous system is operating without real-time feedback. Awareness coming in earlier changes the entire processing sequence. When emotional signals are noticed as they begin, even faintly, the brain stays flexible. Monitoring and integration networks remain engaged. The system does not collapse into reflex. This doesn't mean emotions stop. It doesn't mean intensity disappears. It doesn't mean discomfort goes away. It means that the brain stays online while emotion is present. That's the difference between reacting automatically and having the option to respond later. This lesson exists to build that capacity, not to regulate yet, just to stay present in time. This is where people often overthink. So let's ground it. Emotional awareness is not insight. It's not analysis. It's not figuring yourself out. And it's not asking why over and over again. Emotional awareness is noticing internal signals while they are occurring. And those signals are primarily sensory, not verbal. Most people are taught to identify emotions through thoughts. I feel anxious because, I feel angry that, I feel sad about. But neurologically, emotion doesn't start there. Emotion starts as sensation. You might notice pressure in the chest or tightness in the jaw, heaviness in the limbs, restlessness or agitation, warmth, coolness, buzzing, fatigue. These sensations are not side effects. They are emotional information. From the nervous system's perspective, awareness means allowing those signals to register without immediately assigning meaning or taking action. This matters because when sensation is bypassed and the mind jumps straight to interpretation, the nervous system often escalates. The signal hasn't been received yet. Awareness is the act of receiving the signal, and it can be brief. A few seconds of noticing something just shifted. There's tightness. There's a drop in energy. That's enough to change how the experience is processed. This is especially important for people living with chronic illness. Pain, fatigue, inflammation, and autonomic instability all create signal noise. The nervous system is already busy. Emotional awareness isn't about amplifying those sensations. It's about distinguishing emotional activation from physical baseline. That distinction reduces internal stress. And this needs to be said clearly. Numbness counts. Flatness, fog, disconnection, I don't feel anything. Those aren't absences. They are signals of nervous system downshifting. Awareness doesn't mean forcing feeling. It means noticing what is present, including the absence of sensation. You don't need the perfect label. You don't need to know why. You don't need to decide what to do. Awareness comes first. This section is about normalization, and it matters. When people begin practicing emotional awareness, they often say, I feel more emotional than before. Things feel louder. I'm noticing feelings I didn't realize were there. And that doesn't mean things are getting worse. It usually means awareness is increasing signal clarity. For many people in processed food addiction recovery, food interrupted emotional processing for a long time. When that interruption is gone, emotional signals complete their cycle instead of being cut off. That completion can feel unfamiliar. For people with chronic illness, the body may already be under stress. Awareness can initially feel like more input, even when nothing new is actually happening. What's really happening is recalibration. The nervous system is learning that it can stay present with signals without being overwhelmed. Nothing's breaking. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be pushed through. This stage is about familiarity, not resolution. Let's connect this directly to recovery without turning this into a cravings lesson. Addiction is fundamentally about relief learning. The brain learns that certain actions reliably reduce distress. Over time, distress itself becomes enough to trigger urgency. The system predicts relief and mobilizes toward it. Awareness interrupts this pattern without confrontation. When emotional signals are noticed early and nothing immediately happens, the brain updates its predictions. Distress no longer automatically equals action. This is why people often describe urges becoming wavy. They rise, peak, and pass, not because they're suppressed, but because the nervous system has learned something new through experience. This isn't willpower. This is prediction updating. This lesson is not about stopping urges. It's about changing how the system processes the emotional input that drives them. That change happens quietly through repetition. This section is especially important. Awareness only works when the nervous system feels safe enough to stay present. If awareness fades, if distraction appears, if the mind goes blank, if there's an impulse to move away, this is not resistance. This is regulation. The nervous system is constantly assessing capacity. When input exceeds tolerance, it automatically reduces exposure. That might look like numbing, spacing out, or shifting attention. Biologically, that is adaptive. One of the biggest mistakes people make when learning emotional skills is assuming that pulling away means failure. In reality, pulling away often means the system is protecting itself from overload. This matters deeply for people in recovery and for those living with chronic illness, where capacity is limited and overstimulation has real consequences. Respecting limits builds capacity faster than pushing through them. When awareness is met with safety, when nothing bad happens as a result of noticing, the nervous system updates its expectations. Over time, tolerance expands naturally. Today's lesson is not about increasing intensity. It's about staying within the system's window and letting familiarity do the work. If awareness lasts 10 seconds today, that's enough. If tomorrow it lasts 15 seconds, that is learning. If another day it disappears entirely, that is information. Nothing is lost. Safety is not created by effort. It's inferred through experience. And the experience this week is simple. I noticed, and nothing bad happened. This week, you're not practicing techniques. You're practicing orientation. Very simple things. Noticing sensations as they arise. Noticing emotional tone. Noticing when awareness fades using neutral language, not acting or fixing or reframing. 10 seconds counts. 1 moment counts. Consistency matters more than depth. Every time you notice without reacting, the nervous system learns, I can feel this and stay present. That is the skill. Before we end today, I want to slow this down for a moment. We've covered a lot, not in terms of techniques, but in terms of orientation. And orientation takes time to land, not just in the mind, but in the nervous system. So if, as you're listening right now, you feel clear, that's fine. If you feel a little foggy, that's fine. If something feels stirred, unfinished, or quiet, that's fine too. Nothing needs to resolve before you turn this video off. What matters most about this week is not what you remember. It's what your nervous system experienced while you were listening. Emotional awareness isn't passive. It's not insight. And it's definitely not control. It's keeping the brain online while emotion is present. That alone changes how emotional signals are processed, even when you're not consciously practicing. The nervous system learns through exposure and familiarity, not effort. As you move through the coming days, you may notice moments when awareness shows up a little earlier than usual. You may also notice moments where it disappears entirely. Neither of those experiences means anything is going well or poorly. This week isn't about staying aware all the time. It's about recognizing awareness when it appears and letting that be enough. If all you notice is, oh, something shifted, or I wasn't aware and now I am, that counts. If awareness comes and goes quickly, that counts too. Nothing needs to be held on to. Nothing needs to be prolonged. Nothing needs to be judged. So for now, you can let this be complete. You don't need to carry anything forward from today. You don't need to remember it clearly. You don't need to do anything with it. Just return to your day. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate you.